All the sweet, all the sweet, all the sweet, sweet juice. All the sweet, all the sweet, all the sweet, sweet juice.
You know you need that early in the morning. You like the taste, but don't think hydration important. Better than water, can you hear your body calling? Early in the morning, early in the morning.
All the sweet, all the sweet juice. All the sweet, all the sweet, all the sweet, all the sweet juice. All the sweet, all the sweet, 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 all the sweet, sweet juice.
On me, girl, just sipping on me.
Wanna squeeze me like that fruit, squeezing all the juice.
Girl, just sipping on me, girl, just sipping on me.
Wanna squeeze me like that fruit, squeezing all the sweet, sweet juice.
Up to your lips, you pour it down like you've been thirsty. So sweet, sweet sugar rush, not even 7:30. I got the vitamins, so you don't need to worry. You don't need to worry. You don't need to worry.
All the sweet, all the sweet juice. All the sweet, all the sweet, all the sweet, all the sweet juice. All the sweet, all the sweet, 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 all the sweet, sweet juice.
Sip.
All the sweet. All the sweet, sweet.
Girl, just sipping on me. Girl, just sipping on me.
All the sweet, sweet juice.
And the green flag drops and we are underway. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On the precipice and the follow-up of a brand new update to the Assetto Corsa Competizione service with new physics, new cars, new tyre models, but hopefully tonight we will see some brilliant racing, as we always see, no matter the patch number here at the Positive Perception YouTube channel. Good evening and welcome to round number 3 this evening of our flagship GT3 Championship, the 7th season. The end of tonight will mark the halfway point in this season, and we are at Lincolnshire, Leicestershire, and however many counties, Nottinghamshire included, its own very own Donington Park GP circuit. A fan favourite of many, lots of undulating hills, lots of twists and turns, and lots of potential opportunities for mistakes to be punished. It's a proper old school British circuit, and we love those types of tracks here at the Positive Perception community. Good evening to everyone who's watching already. Power 8 in the chat. We're in the club. We are indeed. It feels very vibey in the music this evening. I can promise you this is the same playlist I always play on this, but it certainly feels a little bit more than we normally do. So the hands up, I guess, if you're in there and enjoying what you're doing, and everyone else is watching as well, or if you're watching this back, then welcome along and thank you for watching. If you haven't done already, make sure you've hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and all that good stuff. The more you interact with us, the more it shows the community and everyone else out there on the YouTube space how good we are, and we're self-confessed, we're pretty good. My name is David Ressel. I will be commentating and hosting everything for this evening for you. Normally, I would be joined by my partner in crime, Mr. Honourable, good finder Chris, as you guys may know him on social media platforms. However, he is sadly not with us this evening. He is otherwise engaged, so I'll be running this one on my own, so please be nice. It's been a while since I've had to do this particular job of commentating, moving all the cameras around and all the other stuff solo as well. But we will power through regardless, and I'm sure we'll be absolutely fine. So going back to what we said a minute ago, brand new cars, brand new physics model, brand new tyre model, setup changes, all sorts are in this this new update. Of course, it's the 1.9 patch, so the big one. We've obviously got a new track as well, but I'm sure we'll come back to the Circuit Ricardo Tour, I think it is, at some point in the future under the Positive Perception guys. Like I say, Donington Park, one of the newer tracks still. I want to say it's one of the 3 that happened before this latest update, I think. One race this evening, so 60 minutes, lights to flag, no pit stops or anything like that needed, 20 minutes of qualifying. The guys are currently in the briefing, so we'll go through and wait a couple of minutes while we wait for the qualifying session to get underway. In the meantime, though, let's talk you through the standings. Now, for the eagle-eyed of you, you will notice that the points are different tonight as to what they were last week. You'll notice they're even lower than they were last week. I was using the wrong ones. That's why. So these ones, as we go from AM through to Silver, like we always, AM through to Pro, like we always do, these will be your official points going forwards. So, starting off with the AM category, Robert Besant still leading the way in that one after another strong showing at Suzuka a couple of weeks ago. Of course, getting caught up in the causing a bit of controversy, you would argue, with that issue, with that lapped car coming through in his form between the battle for the lead of the two guys who won. They were in the battle for the win last time out, Carlo D'Orazio and Carolus Yogulis. Nick Kalianis, he is in second place. He's only 7 points behind Besant at the moment. However, both of them have changed their car with the new update in place, I believe. So, in fact, Robert Besant may not have done. I'll have to remind myself that at some point. But no matter, because that means, those of you who aren't aware of the rulings that we apply here at Positive Perception, that does mean that they will both lose 50 points. Anyone who changes cars loses 50 points off their total for the next round. So you'll see loads of people in different cars. You're probably going to see a hell of a load of Ferraris in here at some point, but the points will be reflected in the next round, so you're all aware. Nadir Balotso, he's 1 point behind Nick in third place, with Lisa Louise a further 22 behind. Sebastian Bidinel a further 23 back from them, and Sandro Bosch and Michael de Groot, the final 3 of the top 10 in the AM Plus who have scored points so far. Colin Dunn, Konstantinos Hatzikonstantinou, and Marcus Richardson, those who have yet to score this evening, throughout the season. Sorry, we'll see if they're available, and we'll be changing that ahead of tonight's race. In the silver standings, Thomas van der Struijs leads away with a comfortable margin at the moment of 14 points, back to the 79 of Gianluca De Luca, with Mark Hooper very much up his rear splitter. You would argue with 1 point difference between them. Ivo van Collenberg and Peter Phillips cannot be split. 73 points. The points shared between those two, and Andrea De Perna a further 2 points back, and then Alessandro De Candia a further 2 points behind him. Steve Derrick, Mike Richards and Mark Neutelings split by 8 points back to 60 to round out the top 10 in the silver standings. So lots to play for in that one. Very, very nice and close, which is exactly how we like it in the silver standings as well. And in the pro class, again, it's all nice and spicy at the top. After a win last time out, Karolis Jurgulis comes out with the bit between his teeth. He's got a 2 point gap at the top of the standings ahead of Marcus Hagel, who of course was caught up in that rather interesting incident between himself and Dario Zappa at Suzuka last time out. That was an elected change of position due to the stewards deciding there was a fault there for Dario. As you can see, he's dropped down the standings as a result. Niall Dodds, Mr. Consistency in the pro class, who hasn't actually had a win yet, but still sits very nicely third in the championship, only 8 points behind Carolus in first. Martin Thorpe is in fourth place with Carlo Durazio, a further 13 points behind him. Posper Bossman Mark Raddenbury on 62 points in sixth place. Ash Coupland, a Positive Perception driver, in 7th place of 60 points. Dario Zappa, the aforementioned, on 47 in 8th place. Miles Dixon on 46, just a 1 point behind, and Aurelien Qua is sitting in 10th place at the bottom of the top 10. That's all going to change tonight. I can guarantee you that, because there will be lots of different drivers on the grid. I can already see, obviously I can see the list of them because I'm in the server. I can already see there's a few on here that aren't in the there's a few names that are at the top of that aren't in the server. So that will change, I've no doubt, ahead of the final half of the season starting in a couple of weeks' time. In the meantime, though, we've got some focus to shed on this evening. I'm very much looking forward to this one. Like I say, I'm a big fan of Donington Park. Car change points power, no, haven't been applied yet, so they'll get applied after this round. So they'll get taken into account when we count the scores for this one. If we did it before, you wouldn't have standings that were correct tonight, because I guarantee you I wouldn't have the time to update them. It's actually a surprisingly fiddly job doing that, but hopefully we'll have something in place potentially before the next season, so season 8, would you believe, that will hopefully make that a little bit easier for us as well. That's fingers crossed anyway. Briefing still underway, so still waiting for the guys to get through the briefing, and then we will hop into a 20-minute qualifying session. As I mentioned, 60 minutes the race tonight, no mandatory pit stop, so lights to flag. There's no point in doing any strategy or anything like that, just basically boot it. Make sure you've filled up enough fuel, because they won't be refueling, and obviously we don't want people running out of fuel, because it happens and it's embarrassing for people. I'm expecting, in fact I can already see there's a handful of carbon cars, because people haven't got liveries loaded because they've picked new cars. They're so new, it's even got a no entry sign on my broadcast app, so I can't even tell you what car they're in. I have to guess at the moment. Some of them are quite obvious, some of them are the same. So if someone's elected for the new Porsche, I can see that, I think. I'm sure I saw that a minute ago. No, I can't even tell if it's a new Porsche. Most of them are Ferraris. You'll see it in a minute. It's basically the 296 Cup, because as is always the case, people pick the new cars. Just what happens. Newer is always better, as they always say. So, as I said earlier, the end of this race marks the halfway point in this season. So if we cast our minds forward a little bit, and we look towards the next couple of rounds, that will be the final round, or final half of the season, I should say. Excuse me. We head to Mezzano on the 4th of May, so 2 weeks from now for round 4. That's a 30-minute double header for that one. We then head over to Zandvoort for round number 5 with a 1-hour tyres and fuel stop race. And then we finish off the season at Watkins Glen for the finale there. Again, a 60-minute lights to flag race for that one. So that is going to be one that's going to be very interesting to watch indeed. It's a track that we went to for the endurance rounds, for those of you who remember, but we haven't had the chance to go there in the GT Championship. So I'm very keen to see how that occurs as well, because obviously you've got a very, very interesting set of skill sets on the grid. So we've got 2 minutes left of the free practice session, so the briefing is pretty much finished as far as I can tell, because I can see there's a couple of drivers just ripping out onto track. Normally that means, well, it should mean the briefing is done. Otherwise, we've got some very naughty boys who shouldn't be driving out on track, and we need to tell them off, which I can't really be bothered to do. So we're just going to wait very politely and very patiently for that to come through. So Donington Park GP layout for this one, so it does mean that they've got to go through the Melbourne Loop. As I can see on my screen, someone's just absolutely obliterated that little tyre wall that sits on the interior of that kind of first part of that little left-right chicane. So I'm sure that's not going to last very long. I've done broadcasting when I've watched races at Donington Park before, and it normally lasts less than a lap. If it lasts longer than that, you've done something well, which is always good fun to watch. But all to play for. We've got guys in the Pro class, guys in the Am class, guys in the Silver class, all racing this evening as well. But it's going to be interesting to see how these guys fare. Of course, like I say, we've only had less than probably about 24 hours to run these new not just run the new cars, but run the new physics, run the new tyre model. Obviously, there's been changes to the camber, the toe, the way the suspension handles, the dampers. There's been all sorts, and I've not even really kept an eye on it, to be completely honest. I've been very busy doing other stuff, so I haven't really had a chance to properly kind of see what's actually changed. But from what I understand, it does mean that it's going to be very different for people going into this round. Like I say, those running the new cars, fine. They're probably not going to notice a difference. I think it's going to be those who are sticking with their tried and tested that they've been using up until this point. They're the ones who are going to, I wouldn't say they're not going to struggle. Not a fair thing to say, but they aren't going to. You're going to see some differences. It'd be very interesting to see how the grid shakes up. We've had a very, very busy practice session leading up to this, and the server in the last 24 hours has been super duper busy as well. So we'll wait and see how that translates into the qualifying session, and obviously how it translates into the race as well. Here we go then. I think they're just about ready to go into qualifying. So I'm just waiting on my end for the session to tick over. So hopefully that will happen any minute now. You can see there's a few cars just finishing off laps in the practice session. But let me know who you're rooting for in the chat. Any names out there? Power suggesting that there's one new Porsche being run by SAR. I don't know if it's being run by SAR, is it? I think it's being run. Wild Things are running a new Porsche, I believe. Yes, that is correct. Most of the other, there's 2 new Porsches, and there's one. And all the other new cars are the Ferrari. So only 2 new Porsches on the grid this evening. No new Lamborghinis though. I think that's because it's not, like, I know it's new, but it's a new Evo. It's an evolution, isn't it, as they call it? It's not really a new car as such. Whereas obviously the 296 is a completely new model from Ferrari. Of course, the 911 is still a 911. It's just a different version of it. So if it's quicker in a straight line, then happy days. Carol Giorgis, of course, championship leader in the pro and overall class. He will, of course, get a penalty because he'll lose 50 points, I should say, because he's obviously going to be getting that penalty points for changing the car. So he'll have to consider that as well. But I can see we have cars on track. So let's hop into the session. Let's make sure that this decides that it wants to actually show a screen. There we go. That's better, isn't it? That's what we want to see. So here we go then. Qualifying well underway. 20 minutes. The the time that these guys have to put in the best possible lap time that they can, and we'll see who comes out on top at the end of this one. We're also going to have a very special interview with Mark Roddenberry on the formation lap. So we're going full V8 supercars. So we're going to have a chat with him on the formation lap ahead of this evening's as well. Power's rooting for Nick in the chat. Nick Carianis is in. He's one of the new Ferraris. So there you go. This is the new Ferrari. If you've not seen it before, this is what it looks like. Very different design to what the 488 was before. So it's nice to see they've kind of gone a little bit different from what they've seen. Even the interior, if I can find the interior, is slightly different. You could just about say it kind of looks a little bit like the BMW, which I find is a little bit strange. Of course, Power just suggesting that is obviously for the class that he wants Nick to win. I don't think he's expecting and hoping for the I mean, that's not the Ferrari, that's him. I just want to make that clear. That he's not done that. That's not him driving it normally. Anyway, shall we go and have a run through with this guy? Karolis Jurgulis, our championship leader, steaming into Redgate on his first flying lap of the session. Drops that Porsche 911 GT3 into second gear as he goes through there, down through the crater curve. It's going to be flat through here in the GT cars, the GT3 cars. That downforce really paying dividends as he goes down in towards the old hairpin. Straight through there, gets on the power. He can a little bit wide there though. Manages to keep the lap valid as I can see on my end. He was the fastest man in practice. We'll see if he continues that as he goes up the hill through Schwantz curve up into McLean's. Nice difficult couple of corners here. McLean's and Coppice. Of course, you've got that blind apex. You can just about see it there. It's not really the best angle, but I can't really get you a better one, unfortunately, which is a bit annoying. As you go through there, onto the back straight now. So I'm Starkey straight and down towards the Fogarty S. Of course, national layout. You go left, you go right here. GP layout, which we're on. We're going to go left. I can see there's a yellow flag down there. He's always invalidated the lap. So that's going to be one of those parts of the track that is going to call people foul as he goes through the S's into the Melbourne loop. Drops it right down into first gear. He's probably going to carry on the lap, you would think. In fact, he has backed out of it, so he's not going to carry on at any real pace, which makes sense because he's invalidated it. So next man, it looks like he's going to cross the line, is this man who's actually going to put a lap time on the board. Of course, he's one of the other pro class championship protagonists in Marcus Hagel. What's the stall going to be to set it out? A 127.730. And then Mark Roddenberry comes across the line with a 129.5. And then Niall Dodd splits those two with a 128.3. And then Matt Damon comes in one of the new Ferraris of the evening. He comes through the 127.5 in the AF Corsa 122 machine. So he is the early pace setter in this one. But I can already see all of those drivers who have set lap times all the way down to Matt Besant and Nick Cadianis in P9 are all improving on their lap time as it stands. So that 27.5, I can promise you, and I don't mean this in a bad way to Matt, it's not going to be the pole position time come the end of this race. Probably not even going to be the fastest time in the silver class. I've seen these guys can go quicker. So 16 minutes to really shape things up. So now we'll go back to the man in the Porsche Championship leader in the pro side of things, Jurgulis. He's going to come through the Fox S's. Can he get it right this time? No, he can't, because it's just as I've said that, he has gone and invalidated this one as well. So that first corner proving difficult. First corner chicane proving difficult as James Fletcher in the D&D Team Sport car comes through in P12 with a 129.842. As you can see, these guys are all putting in lap times. How many have we got? We've got 29 on the grid at the moment. Rich Pixley says, I'll sit patiently. I don't really know why you've got to sit patiently. You can't see you in the service. That might be why. Unless you are. No, you're not on my list. I wonder if you've been a naughty boy. There you go, another purple lap there for the 122 car. Matt Davis goes quicker then again. That was only by half a tenth, really. So nothing major as James Fletcher loses the car going through McLean's and just aborts to the infield. A bit further down, we've got Lisa Louise in the LLK racing car. She was did a fantastic showing as one of the Positive Perception team drivers at the More Female Racers second round at Silverstone, I want to say, on Monday night. Couple of class podiums for her, which is fantastic to see. She kind of just holds up Ash Coupland a little bit there, so not ideal for Ash. He won't want that to happen, but luckily plenty of time left for him, and he's actually still improving as Ash anyway, so it's not going to impact him too much as they come through Goddard's on their respective flying laps. There we go, across the line, puts himself up to 5th. Does Ash in the end with a 128.1. Rich missing qualifying fine. As long as you can get on before the race, mate, that's fine. As long as you're not doing the naughty boy strategy of the first challenge, because you know Mark doesn't like it. So, I won't tell him if you don't. Let's have a look around the grid. Marcus Hagel at the moment, he's improving. He comes through Goddard's. Is it going to be an improvement enough to get up to the top of the grid? It is at the moment. That's a 127.3 from the 117 Pulse Sim Sport car. He said didn't have the best of showings, got caught up in an incident with Dario Zappa in the last round. Hopefully not going to have that issue again. As Mark Raddenbury crosses the line now, he goes up into P6. Fastest first sector of anyone in that M6, which still doesn't have the right livery on, because I told him about this last time. That's not the right one. It is missing a load of stuff over the top of it. He's still not uploaded it properly. Not good enough for that. You did a good job of it last time, mate. Whether you plan to start from the back or not, I think you got what? You managed to get through at least half the grid in the end. So don't do yourself a disservice, young man. There you go. Then Martin Thorpe in the Total Connectors Motorsport car, the number 920 M4, one of a handful of M4s on the grid for this championship. He is improving at the moment. He goes through the Melbourne Loop, loses a little bit of time on the exit, so we'll see if he can maintain that positive trajectory. If he does, it looks like he might have a chance of getting himself on to the pole position, at least provisionally speaking, as he comes out of Goddard's, crosses the line. There we go. Yeah, it does go fastest by half a tenth with a 127, sorry, 325. The Marcus Hagel behind him sat in pit lane. So at the moment, it is this man, Martin Thorpe, who leads the way from Marcus Hagel. Matt Damon sits 3rd on the grid as it stands, with Dario Zappa sitting in just behind. He is actually one of the few people who hasn't gone for the new Ferrari, interestingly. So he's in the old one. We'll see how that fares for him, essentially, because normally, from experience, if you don't change to the new evolution of the car, it tends to be a bit slower. We'll see whether that'll be the case for him. He's certainly a little bit off the pace at the moment. So what's that? 7 tenths off Martin Thorpe at the moment. So a little bit of room for improvement from him, but I'm sure we'll see that over the next 11 and a bit minutes. If we look a bit further down the grid here, he's one of the naughty boys. I told them in the Discord server I would call them out. Eva van Collenberg in the Orca Pose racing Ferrari with no livery. So it's a carbon car. Doesn't look any good. Power asking what times we expected before the update. That is a really good question. Probably one that Rich is probably better asking in the chat as well, to be fair, because he's definitely driven this track more recently than I have. I can guarantee it. I want to say like a 25, 26. I'm sure I heard people were doing 26s yesterday in the practice session after the update went through in the new cars. So I feel like a 26 is going to be somewhere around the level that we can expect these top guys to get to. The great thing is, though, the top 10 are separated by barely more than a second. The top 20 is separated by 2.2 seconds. So it's all nice and close, and that's what we like to see. Although there's a big gap from 4th down to 5th, see that kind of half a second gap, there's still plenty of possibility for us to be nice and close in this one. One man who's improving at the moment is Niall Dodds, potentially on course for a potential front row of the grid if he can keep it together going into Goddard's in that Merc AMG GT3. Comes out of there on the power zone. He dares all a little bit wide there as he crosses there. Is he going to get the pole position? He goes line. He is indeed. 127.1, so 2 tenths quicker than anyone else, as Dario Zappa takes an interesting pit exit line coming out of there. Probably rather sensible in the end, because he's obviously trying to get out of the way. But Dodds puts his car on that pole position spot for the time being. Mark Cooper, I bet there's no guessing who he's a fan of at the moment, looking at that livery. I would also add that he does work in some sort of department in a knowingly unnamed Formula One team based somewhere out of Milton Keynes. Yeah, top 4 are separated by 2.2 tenths. I know it's mad, isn't it? Top 5, 3 and 4 tenths of a second, you'd argue. And with the likes of Zappa, Coupland, Durazio, is there anyone else around here? I would argue Rich Pixley, if you were in this qualifying, mate, you'd probably be up there as well. So I think that shows you just how close this is going to be. Of course, we've got a couple of the silver guys up there as well. Thomas van der Struijs sitting in P6 at the moment. He's the first of the silver cars. James Jackson a few tenths back as Mark Cooper there does improve, puts himself up into P17. As you can see, he's actually in probably the best position on track, you would argue, because look at that massive gap he's got in front of him. He's got no one in front of him. He's got the 193 car, that's Karianis, sitting in behind him in the VRMA car. That's the Virtual Rallies Motorsport. So no, Valleys Racing. I can't remember. They're a sim racing community out of the valleys in Wales. That's what I mean. Ah, which is in the old Porsche. Interesting. So there we will see. We'll definitely see how that fares then. Because we've got an old Ferrari, a new Ferrari, got an old Porsche, a new Porsche on the grid. At least a couple of which as well. So we'll see how that plays out. Matt Damon has improved. He's put himself up into P2. He's a tenth of a second now behind. So now the top five separated by 2.5 tenths. And that is utterly ridiculous. Interestingly, though, Thomas van der Stroys is the fastest man in the first sector. Martin Thorpe faster in the second sector. And Nardod's fastest in the final sector. So if you put all of them together, you're looking at potentially... Are you looking at a 26.8, I would say. Seems kind of around about what it is. Valleys Racing Motors. There you go. Thank you, Poe. I couldn't remember what it was. It didn't matter. It didn't make sense. I got it wrong in the first place. There you go. Matt Damon AC definitely invalidating that lap. Marcus Hagel crosses the line. Will he improve? He does improve, but not by enough to get a position up, which is quite ridiculous when you consider how close these guys are at the top of the timing board. Another driver who's improving at the moment is the man at the back of the grid at the moment, which is Michael de Groot. We talked about him. He's another one of the Orcapos racing Ferrari cars, which hasn't loaded the livery in. Michael, come on. Hopefully we'll get them in before next time. Lisa Louise making an improvement. She comes out of the Melbourne Loop. She's 6 tenths up at the moment. She goes into Goddard's for another time. We've got 7.5 minutes left of qualifying. So what are you talking about? 6 laps, you would say? She crosses the line, puts herself up a couple of positions. Good lap from her. 1.7 seconds off pole at the moment. That's a really good show. I'm sure she'll be pleased with that. Fastest of all of the AM drivers at the moment, to the tune of about 3.5 seconds. You can just see there Nick Kalianis and Rob Besant sitting 23rd and 24th respectively. There we see Mike Richards in the BWT Muka Motorsport Audi. Number 89 car. I do like that BWT livery. It never misses for me. I do like the completely bright pink, never going to miss it style. And I love the fact they've managed to kind of blend the BWT over there, over the side of the car as well. It's always nice. But that's not so nice as he comes out of the Melbourne hairpin. Makes a mistake, gets the little tail happy on the exit. And as a result, loses that lap time essentially. As there we go, crosses the line. Marcus Hagel pulls the stall out when he needs to. 127 flat. 030, 9 tenths of a second quicker. Sorry, 9 hundredths of a second quicker than Niall Dodds, who's currently sat in the pit lane. So we'll see if he does choose to come out at some point. Oh, there is Karagoulis. Sorry, steaming down the crane of curves in that Porsche. You see coming up the hill, through Schwantz curve, up towards McLean's. You can see really got the ring and the neck out of this one. He's actually not improving at the moment. We'll stick with him to see if anything does come out of this one. He's only a tenth or so down on his fastest lap, but benefit of him. Still got, 5.5 minutes left of qualifying. So still plenty of time for him to go in and sort himself out on that side. Oh, there's Mike Richards doing an incredible amount of pirouettes behind us there. I don't know how many he did. That was incredible. I need to see a replay of that because he did so many pirouettes coming out of there. That was incredible. Here we go. Right, so 1, 2, 3, 4. That's nothing short of impressive, I've got to say. I love to see that. And here we go. Jürgen is coming towards Goddard's now. He's not going to improve by the looks of it. So he's not going to improve on this occasion. So he'll have to run a tour again and see if he can improve any further. Does get a little bit of time going through the final couple of corners, but not enough on this occasion. Martin Thorpe in the 920 machine. He is improving as it stands. He goes through the crane of curves, not Schwantz curve, up towards McLean's. I was going to say under Starkey's Bridge. It doesn't exist in ACC for some reason. I don't know why. I haven't been to Donington Park in a while, so I'm not sure whether they've actually taken it down, but certainly there the last time I went, and it will hopefully be there when I go there in a couple of months' time. Here he goes, comes out through. Mike Richards is doing some very interesting stuff in the background. Anywhere I look at the moment, he seems to be on the grass and not pointing in the right direction, or one of the above, or both of the above, I should say, in the background of the picture, which is tickling me a little bit. Power say, yeah, tyre wear may play a role in this race if people get the new set right. You're absolutely right. Especially those who have maybe tried to use the old trick of maxing out the toe in the camber. We'll see whether people start to struggle. I expect we'll see lap times will probably drop off quite rapidly if they are struggling, like you say. Here comes Martin Thorpe over the line. Does improve, not by enough to get another position up on the grid. Here we go. Dario Zappa, not the imperious pace we've come used to from this man. He was super quick at Suzuka last week and at Monza. That's the one I'm looking for. In the first round 4 weeks ago, there's a Mercedes there just waiting to go on to that. That's an interesting role from them. That's James Buchanan, I believe, who is in that car. Zappa does improve half a second off now, so he's within half, or just over half a second, sorry, out of the pole position spots. Still got, what, 3 minutes left, so 2 laps, you'd argue, for him to improve. I mean, look at this. Look, there's a slightly sizable gap partway through this field, but this is so close. I mean, I'm looking at James Jackson, the man on your screen now. He's a second off. I go all the way down to Nick Karayanis in 23rd to find anyone who is just more than a second behind James. That's what a 15 car get split of a second, a second and a tenth. 1.1 seconds. Why didn't you just say that in the first place? There you go. Go back to Alessandro Di Candia. Looks, is he the one getting a tow? He is. Of Rob Besant, that looks like, as they go into the Melbourne Loop. It'd be interesting to see whether Rob does get out of the way. He does. Or was that just completely ruined? Excuse me, you probably had a big burp then. That's ruined Di Candia's lap because it's actually made him slide through the Melbourne hairpin. So that's going to impact that lap. So he's not going to improve. And as a result, decides to abort the lap. Go back towards the top of the timing charts. Carolus Yogulis, just waiting to see whether he does improve. I feel like I'm cursing him by watching him every time. He comes through Gollards for another time. He's got probably 2 more laps, you would argue, if he's got the fuel to do it. He does improve, goes third on the grid. Still behind the second rotor grid, but importantly, we'll have the inside line going into the first corner. Car dynamics look better after the update too. You're absolutely right. I actually saw, can't remember who shared it, but someone shared a video of the, I think it was the BMW M6 after Imola last night, of it kind of going over the sausage curbs as you go through, I want to say the Villeneuve chicane, the second one. It looks amazing. Like, before now, you'd have bounced and probably set off into oblivion and disappeared somewhere. But now they handle them so much better. And from what I understand, from what I've heard about what Aris has said, it sounds like they're a bit more true to form as well. Is what we like to see. And I've heard a lot of very, very good feedback from people after the update as well, which is always nice to see. There was Carlo Dorazio, by the way, putting himself up into P7, just ahead of Thomas van der Stroys by the tune of half a tenth. As we see Peter Phillips in the 14 Wild Things racing car. Good to see that Denise Pope has managed to get the Wild Things livery onto one of the new cars early doors. I know she works for Kunios, so I would imagine she's probably had the wireframes for a little while, I'd have thought. So this has probably been sitting in the pipeline for a little bit of time, I would think. Phillips goes through the Fogarty S's, gains a little bit of time there, and importantly doesn't invalidate the lap. As we're coming through, we'll come to some of the top players in just a minute, because we've got half a minute left to qualify, and there's a yellow flag out on track. Oh, that's gone now. Couldn't quite see who was causing that. In fact, Gullis is the one who has caused it now. He's gone back into pit lane. He has not improved, so he sits third at best for this qualifying session. Damon, Thorpe and Coupland all on laps behind him. As Peter Phillips crosses the line, he is going to have another chance to put a lap in, which is important of him because he doesn't manage to improve. We'll see whether he goes into the first corner at some sort of speed. It looks like he does. I've got to say, it looks like a Porsche. Look, it looks like a 911, but that one looks particularly nice. I've got to say, oh, it's Niall Dodds. I was just about to say he is improving to enough to get pole position. Isn't going to do it though, because he's gone deep through the Fogarty S's, so won't improve to get that potential pole position. Martin Thorpe though, he is improving. Is he going to improve by enough as we go through the Melbourne Loop? Is he going to improve by enough to get a potential pole position? He's got a very, very good run through the Melbourne Loop. He is on track for it as it stands. If he can keep this together as he goes into Gollards, he will be in with a chance of getting pole. Marcus Hagel has finished his final flying lap. He will not improve. Martin Thorpe comes out of Gollards for the final time. Will he get the pole position? He runs to the line. He will indeed. It's a 1:26.9. It's 7/100ths of a second faster than Marcus Hagel, and that is an inaugural pole position for Martin Thorpe in the number 920 total Connexus Motorsport car. Fantastic showing from him. We drove back to Peter Phillips as Andrea De Candia improves and puts himself up into the outskirts of the top 15. He's 13th on the grid, and Peter Phillips improving all the time as he comes through the final couple of corners. He's got Nadir Balozzo for company just behind him, I believe that is. Goes through Goddard's for the final time. He's going to be the last man, it looks like, to cross the line, and he goes across the line there, puts himself up into P60. In fact, I think he improved. I don't know whether he actually improved enough to make any major difference in the end, but wowee, that was the kind of ending you want to a qualifying session. The top 10 separated by just over a second, 1.080 the gap there, as I can now see that our aforementioned in the chat Rich Pixley has joined the server, which is always nice to see. That super close. We'll run you through the grid in just a second once we've got into the server and we can show you what's going on here, because we've got lots to look at in terms of these new cars, and we'll have a look at some of the new liveries as well, and we will make sure we tell off the people who haven't put the new livery on, because we want to make sure they are they are suitably reprimanded, we shall say. As I'm setting up the segue for this, it's actually quite an uphill drive on this grid for Donington Park. I've never noticed that before. I've actually walked on the track at one point, but I've never noticed that in the past. Fix this first. Let's go a little bit higher. Sorry, you have to bear with me. You can't see what I'm doing. I can see what I'm doing, and that's all that matters. I want to make sure that it all looks good ahead of this one here. So not long to go then. Very much waiting now for the lights to go green for the formation lap, and we'll get a track walk underway in just a few moments time, like I say, so we can talk you through the full grid ahead of this one. So here we go then. Let's have a look through the grid for this one. You see, just jumping back over into the server. There we go. We've got a little bit higher because everyone seems to be deciding that they want to be a pain and make it bounce, because they're doing all their setup changes, which is always good fun for me. So on pole position is Martin Thorpe in the 920 BMW with, who is that? That is Marcus Hagel alongside him. Niall Dodds, oh my word, there you go. You see what I mean? It's terrible. Niall Dodds and Karol Giorgulis are on the second row of the grid, with then Matt Damon and Ash Coupland 5th and 6th respectively. Dario Zappa and Carlo Durazio on the 4th row of the grid in 7th and 8th place, with Thomas van der Stroys and James Jackson rounding out your top 10. Further down the grid, then we've got Mark Raddenbury on your left-hand side of your screen in P11, with Gianluca De Luca alongside him in P12, Andrea De Candia and Jamie Buchanan 13th and 14th respectively. We then have Andrea De Perna and Peter Phillips in 15th and 16th, and then Ivo van Collenberg and James Fletcher 17th and 18th respectively. And Mike Richards and Mark Cooper rounding out the top 20. Continue down, then we've got Ollie G and Elisa Louise on the 11th row of the grid, with Nick Kalianis and Rob Besant there in the 2nd and 3rd of the AM classes just behind him. Steve Derrick and Nadir Balozzo 25th and 26th, with Zach Hardy, Michael de Groot, Sandro Bosch and Rich Pixley, the aforementioned, in the old Porsche, I will add, sitting at the back of the grid. Of course, didn't partake in qualifying, so hence the reason why he is going to be at the back. So now, all we do is wait. We've got 2 minutes to go until this one kicks off. Like I say, this will be marking the halfway point of the season here in the Positive Perception GT Championship. If you haven't already, please make sure you're hitting that like button on the stream. Thank you to those of you who have done that already. It is very much appreciated. And if you haven't done, make sure you hit that subscribe button and that little notification bell, because then you know every single time we go live. And we do a lot of it around here nowadays, so you might as well. I have got to make sure that I pull in Mr. Raddenbury for when we do the formation lap. I promised him I would, and he promised me he would say nice things. So whether that's the case or not remains to be seen. But we'll grab him in just as soon as the as soon as the formation lap starts, in a minute or so. So he can get himself ready, do all of his setup changes, because we don't want him to give away any of the secrets, do we? We might want that to happen. So then let me know in the chat what you think. Who is going to take the win in this one? I am going to put my bets on Marcus Hagel, I believe. I know that Martin Thorpe is looking super quick at the moment. Obviously puts that car on pole position. I feel like Hagel has just got that pace on him at the moment. I feel like he can pull it out when he needs to. And as Poe rightly mentioned, join the Discord for some sweet, sweet racing. We've got this GT3 Championship, which is fully subscribed, but that will change, I'm sure, over the coming weeks, because obviously you know how people are. It tends to drop down a little bit as we go through the season. But we also have got a GT4 Championship and an Endurance Championship, which moves to Suzuka in about 6 weeks' time. At the start of June, we move over to that. So lots to look forward to coming up in the next few weeks as well, including the continuation and final 3 rounds of this GT3 season as well. So very much excited and looking forward to all of that. Right, the cars are very much about to go racing, or at least go on a formation lap anyway. So what I'm going to do is, as soon as we start driving, I'm going to drag the Posper Bossman himself into our little commentary chat. I have been told I have to remember to bring him back in as well. Look, I've moved him in now so he can hear what I'm saying. So Mark, good evening to you, sir. Just outside the top 10. I did say to the chat that I would wait for you to do your setups and everything beforehand to not distract you, but it's decent qualifying considering the M6 is maybe not the most agile of cars in the world. How was that from your perspective in a qualifying session? You're certainly right. It is not the most agile of cars. Coming down the Craner curves in this thing is every lap is just hold your breath, just pray. And especially through the chicane, it arrives with a lot of speed. I'm actually about 4 to 5 mile an hour quicker than everyone else in a straight line, even here. So I'm arriving with a lot more speed into the chicane, and it's terrifying, but epic fun. I love the M6. Absolutely. So you were one of those people who hasn't elected to go for one of the new cars. I know you prefer, to be fair, much like you prefer an older car. I think you'll agree. You loved when we did the old generation series a couple of seasons back, didn't you? But how are you seeing the differences between these two? Because obviously at the moment we've kind of got a bit of a spread, haven't we? There's 2 of the new Ferraris ahead. There's 1 Porsche, but some of them are behind as well. So what's your thoughts? Have you tried any of them yet? I managed to have a quick go in the Lamborghini last night. Everyone knows that I love a Lamborghini. I had a quick go in it last night. I found it really smooth, really nice car to drive. And as always with a Lamborghini, it just sounds ballistic. I'm yet to give it a proper test. I haven't tested any of the cars. I've only looked at 2 of the wireframes. So, you know, but yeah, they're certainly a really, really nice addition to the game, along with Valencia as well. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure what I was saying to the chat, and I'm sure we'll get to there at some point, I've no doubt. Got a season to finish off first. But look, I won't leave you too much longer because I appreciate you've got to get your head in the zone. So before I leave you to be, what are your hopes and expectations ahead of this race? What's a respectable finishing position for the 750 car tonight? If I finish where I started, I'll be happy. There's a few quick boys behind me, so as long as I can make the M6 even wider than it already is, we should be okay. I was going to say, you're benefiting from the fact it is already a very wide car. We'll let you go, Mark. Thank you for taking the time out and joining us. I will move you back into the chat with everyone else. Good luck this evening, and we'll speak to you again very soon. Thank you, chat. Enjoy the race, chat. There we go. I've shifted him away now, so you can all say your rude things about him again. That was Mark Raddenbury there. Positive Perception founder, owner, boss man, whatever you want to call him. Just general nice guy. There, very kind of him to hop in and have a quick chat with us before the race. Felt very V8 supercars, which I quite like that. So anyway, as you come through Goddard's for the final time on this formation lap, Martin Thorpe will lead us away from Marcus Hagel alongside with Dodson, Jurgelis and Damon and Coupland, the top 6, as we go green any second now for round 3 here in the Positive Perception GT Championship. And we're underway, and it's Martin Thorpe who gets a great getaway from the start there, manages to cover off the line at the inside, going towards the Red Gate for the first time. Dario Zappa in there as well. And look at that run around the outside. There's Ash Coupland going wide as well, but Dario Zappa doesn't manage to get the position I thought he might have done. Martin Thorpe gets exactly the start he wanted there. Ash Coupland going wide. He's dropped himself right back down. He's up into, I mean, it says he's P1. He is not P1 at all. That'll figure itself out in a minute, as you can see as they go through the first couple of sectors here. It's all change up at the top now. We'll have a look and see where those changes have happened. Carlo Durazio, the man on your screen at the moment, he is the big winner 3 positions off the start. Matt Damon dropping a couple. Mark Raddenbury, we talked to him. He's getting around the outside of Zappa, going through McLean's fantastic move in the M6 there from the 750 car. Manages to get himself right round the outside. Proper balls to the wall move. Rob Besant further down. He's gained 10 positions off the start. He's sitting in P15 at the moment. We'll wait for that timing tower to update itself in just a second, but as he goes from the top of the leaderboard, it is Martin Thorpe who leads the way at the back end of lap 1, but to the tune of around about a second back to Marcus Hager, with Niall Dodds and Jörg Gullis very much close in behind there. We've got then Carlo Durazio and Matt Damon. Matt Damon is making the move at the inside of the Melbourne Loop. And is he going to keep that? He's going to have the outside line as we go up towards Goddard. So whether he can hold on to it, Durazio, I'm sure, will get his nose up the inside. And Raddenbury is looking there, licking his lips, thinking, oh, I'll get me a piece of this. And get himself even further up there as we cross the line there. Martin Thorpe taking the first lap of this race in the lead by 9/10 of a second. Carlo Durazio holds on to the position. Mark Raddenbury's going to look around the outside of Matt Damon through Redgate. He's not going to make it happen though, and he's got to be careful because he's got Dario Zappa very much in behind him as well. Let's have a look further back. We can see Zach Hardy under a bit of pressure from Rich Pixley. Rich is going to look up the inside as he's going into Redgate. He's not going to go for a move, looking at the kind of the distraction tactics. The man in the number 7 Wild Things Racing Porsche already up from the back of the grid up to P21. And we've got an early pit stop for presumably some damage for that of Jamie Buchanan. We'll see if we can keep an eye on that and see what's happened there. In fact, I can see James Jackson dropping down the grid as well. What we'll do, we'll have a look through. I'm just looking at the changes for position at the moment. The big winners in this one, of course, Rob Besant, Rich Pixley, Zach Hardy making 6 positions up off the start, and Andrea De Perna, Peter Phillips, Van Collenberg and Richards all making 4 positions off the start as well. Your big losers, there's 4 of them. James Jackson, he's lost 12 positions off the start, of course, started P10, now P22. Sandro De Candia, sorry, sitting in P28, he's lost 15 positions off the start. James Fletcher even further back in P29, and Jamie Buchanan coming out of the pit lane and down through the crane of curves, he sits back of the pack at the moment. What we'll do is when this starts to calm down a little bit, we'll have a look and see what happened with those guys. As Dario Zappa, you see there, gets back into 7th place on the 9th place, 7th place. It will figure it out. There we go, 7th place. It's going to I'm sure he's in 7th on the grid at the moment. So in the race, you know what I mean. Manages to get himself back past the 750 car, and he now turns his attention to Matt Damon in the new Ferrari ahead of him. So it's 488 versus 296. This is the first real test we've seen, but to kind of really get a flavour as to the difference in potential and performance of these two cars. We'll see. Keep an eye on that as things develop. Going back to one of the other new 296 Ferraris, Ivo van Collenberg. He is the leader in the Silver Championship, of course, but not the leader in the Silver race at the moment. In fact, no, he's not. Thomas van der Stroys is the leader of the Silver Championship. Apologies, Thomas. I didn't mean to forget about you for a second there. But Collenberg sitting in 13th at the moment. Only 7/10 off Peter Phillips, who is, I wouldn't say he's dropped off the back of Andrea De Perna, but he is losing a little bit of time at the moment. I mean, that Porsche of his does look a little bit bent at the front. If I'm not mistaken, it looks a little bit battered and bruised. And now what we'll do is we'll go back and see if we can find out what's happened in any of these. And there goes the tyre. Well, there it is. It's bouncing up and down all over the place. Is that going to come back on? I mean, if that happens in real life, that's terrifying. That is a surefire red flag. In fact, it just seems to have disappeared. As you see there, another fastest lap for Martin Thorpe, just extending that gap slightly as he comes through another lap. Now what we'll see, I'm trying to see, so I can see a bit of contact with a few people here. Let's see if we can get the contact. So Powers just asked in the chat about Nick Carrier, so we'll see what's happened here. I can see a bit of contact on here as he goes, oh, very deep into there. Oh my word, that's how James Fletcher's ended up in the wars as well. And that is what happened to Nick Karianis. There you go, Power. You asked for it. You've seen it now. And that explains why that has happened. We'll see if we can find out anything to do with the 81 car of Jamie Buchanan. I can't actually see anything on this. I don't know if he just lost it all on his own accord, potentially. And we've got some more contact between Nick earlier on in the lap, it looks like, as well. So this is going into the first corner. Just a bit of a nudge from the behind by Steve Derrick. Oh, it is, yeah. Just gets just nerfed to the inside. There's James Jackson down the inside there as well. So he's the 39 car. So we'll see what happened on him into the first corner row. He goes very wide. Is he picked up by the fact that Ash Coupland goes wide as well? Oh, no, a little bit of a nudge there from Gianluca De Luca. That's where Peter Phillips got the damage from as well. I expect we'll be seeing some protests being thrown into the mix after the race this evening, because that was a little bit battered and bruised and a little bit naughty from some people going there. Of course, it is the Constantino effect, but I think we can do a little bit better than that on occasions. Back up towards the front end of the grid. Battle for P7 still. That's Dario Zappa at the front of that train at the moment. He hasn't really managed to bridge the gap from Mark Raddenbury behind him, and nor has Mark managed to bridge the gap to Ash Coupland. And then Van der Stroys, I believe that is. In fact, I don't think that's Van der Stroys in behind them. Yes, it is, sorry. It looked like a Lexus from one angle. I was getting very confused, but it's not a Lexus. A bit further. Oh, what's a bit elbows out there from Dorazio. So they go up through, put under where Starkey's Bridge would have been, and through Schwantz curve up into McLean's. Looked very aggressive and very forceful from the Italian, the number 26 car in the EOS Esport Racing BMW M4. One of those who's on my naughty list because he hasn't got a livery loaded, but that's not the first time we've seen that from Carlo, unfortunately. But yeah, that was forceful, I think is the word you would use for that. As we go into the Fog TS's, Mark making that BMW M6 as wide as he can to stop Ash Coupland, from making the move. Is he going to look to the outside? No, sensible move from Mark there, just to cover the inside, but does go a little bit deep, and that's going to give Ash a chance to get the cutback move. Is it going to happen? It looks like it has. As we go to the helicam, we're going to look up the back straight. You can see, look at the speed differential that BMW has. It is a rocket ship in a straight line. There we go. Ash tries to get the cutback again, and he just can't do it. Mark is putting that car in exactly the right place for every single entry and exit into every corner he goes into. You can see a yellow flag there caused by the 34 car. I didn't see who it was, and it looks like they've left the server, so I'm just trying to figure out who that might potentially have been. I can't tell you. Can't figure out who it is. It's my sincerest apologies. Now, what this battling between Dorazio and Damon is doing is it's pushing them back into Dario Zappa and Mark Raddenbury and Ash Coupland and co. But it's also giving a nice bit of wiggle room for Jurgulis, Dodds and Hagel to really kind of fight it out for those upper echelons of the results as it stands. Of course, look, we're 9 and a bit, we're less than 9 minutes into the race. We're 8 and a bit minutes in. Still got plenty of time for this to all shake out. But that's 7 seconds, the gap nearly, from Dorazio up to Jurgulis. So it is something that will have to be very much keeping an eye on. As Jurgulis, does he look to the inside into the Melbourne Loop? He does. Looks to the inside of Niall Dodds. Can he get the move done? It looks like he does. It looked to me like that was... almost looked like Niall just kind of got out of the way a little bit, it felt like. We'll see if we can go back a little bit just to see what happens there. You see as he goes into the Melbourne Loop, he's looking at it and it just looks like he kind of leaves the door open intentionally, as if he's almost like, yeah, do you know what, that's fine. Like, it's all right. You crack on. You take the move. No major beef there. We'll see whether that's because Niall's got a lack of pace, potentially, whether he's just struggling to keep up with him will remain to be seen, but we'll keep an eye on it. At the top of the time board, though, Martin Thorpe is very much enjoying himself out there at the moment in the 920 machine. A second and a half is the gap after the first, arguably best part of 10 minutes in this race. So we're sick for the way into this one. Very much lots of battle packs forming further down the grid, though. So this is very much all still up for grabs. The slightly battered and bruised Porsche of Peter Phillips in the Wild Things racing car. He has got Ollie Giel, Mike Richards, Gianluca De Luca and Ivo van Collenberg all within a little train forming behind him, to the tune of about 7/10 of a second, the gap between him and Ollie at the moment. Ollie being one of those who's also elected to change cars. He's in that Cosmic Kitten livery, which for those of you who don't know has actually been it's an AI generated livery. I haven't tried it yet myself, but it's an interesting concept for sure. As we saw there, Gianluca De Luca going a little bit wide going through the exit of Coppice there. If we look further down, I've just seen Mark Raddenbury. He is down in 17th now. I don't know what's happened to him. In fact, if I look here, contact with the 52 car, that's Ash Coupland. So we'll see what happens here as they come up in towards Coppice. Coming in like, oh, he loses the back end and then gets a little bit of a nudge. And that spins the car around, and that gives Mark all sorts of work to do. He was talking about the fact on the formation update, all he wanted to do really was just stick in his position. It's not going to happen as it stands, but he is going to try and go around the outside of Mark Cooper in the Lexus. Not going to get it done. That's going to give Pixley the chance to get the move up the inside of Goddard's, but it is, of course, going to transfer to the outside as they go into Redgate. So you'd think that Mark will cover this off relatively easily as Raddenbury slinged one up the inside of Cooper in that Lexus. Pixley's looks like he's going to try and follow him through. This is a great little ding-dong scrap between these three coming down the crane of curves. Looks like Raddenbury's got the move done. He's moved himself up into 16th, so got himself past the 48 car of Cooper, and Pixley's looking to follow him through as they go through the old hairpin. It doesn't manage to get the move done, but Pixley is all over him. He's like a rat of a drain pipe trying to get that move done. Look at how close they are going up the hill towards McLean's. Lisa Louise is going to look to get up on the action as well. So we look from the rear spoiler of this Lexus. He's surely not going to try and move there. Is Rich? No, he's not. Oh, as Cooper goes a little bit wide, a little bit sideways. Sideways. That's one way of putting it as he comes out of Coppice down onto the Starkey Straight as they go down towards the Fox S's. This is going to be interesting. What are they going to do? It looks like Mark has got the lost position, and interestingly, yeah, probably sensibly, elects to yield the move and carries on for another day. As we go looking into Melbourne, Luke, goodness me, there's action all over the place. Saul Mike Richards gives Peter Phillips a double tap there. Zombieland is the theme I'm thinking of there, because he didn't hit him once, he hit him the second time, really just to make sure that was the case as well. And Peter Phillips drops like a stone down towards the back end of the top 20 now. James Jackson, you can see there just in the background, very much up close and personal behind him now. Oh, good me, pardon me. Only time you'll see a Red Bull defending this season. You're absolutely right, Poe, where there is very much truth spoken in that sentence there. Now I've come back up to the top of the race at the moment, because the battle for P1 has started to heart up a little bit. If you haven't seen already, if you look at the pin message in the chat, you can see we've got live timing, courtesy of Pitwall Live. So if you want to have a look at what I'm seeing here, you can actually get some really good intel in terms of that on there as well. But interestingly, it looks like there was a mistake from Martin Thorpe on the last lap. He did a 128.5, whereas Marcus Hagel did a 127.9, which is why this gap was closed down. That is the Aston Martin of Steve Derrick, I believe, just in front of them, as Nick Karayanis pits from P27, so he's dropping down there as well. Dario Zappa is potentially facing the wrong way as well. What's happened here? Look, I'm assuming he's lost that all on his own, because if he's spinning there, he's no one around him. Oh, he is. Oh, we've seen that happen before. Oh, dearie me, that is unfortunate. I did wonder, and there you go, just gets caught up on the grass, and that is thrown him as well right down to the outskirts of the top 20. Loses it again. Those tyres are too hot, you would argue, and he's really struggling to keep that car in a straight line now. So very unfortunate for him, dropping right the way out of the top 10 and out of those major points paying positions. Further up though, Thomas van der Stroys in the York Post Mercedes, he is under pressure. In fact, loses the position very easily to an on-charging Ash Coupland in the 52 car. Positive Perception Aston Martin getting his way through and up into P5. Now sets his sights on that of, well, I was going to say Niall Dodds, but there's a 15-second gap to Niall Dodds ahead of him, because that's not Niall ahead of him on track. I can't quite see who it is. It's the 55 car, I believe. That's James Fletcher in front of him on track, as always Van der Stroy going a little bit wide there. He's in the fortunate position. He has got a decent gap at the top of that silver class on track at the moment as well. So he's got, what, about 5 seconds back to Ollie Giel, who's currently second in class in that number 18 Ferrari 296. Martin Thorpe still leading the way though. That gap is closing. Carolus Jurgulis hit the fastest lap of the race on the last time at a 127.6. No one improves on that time. They're all kind of matching each other at the moment. It's 28.3 for Thorpe, a 28.2 for Hagel, and a 28 flat for Jurgulis. So they're definitely closing up. And Niall Dodds, I will add, is nowhere near out of this as well. He's, as you can see, literally there. This is the battle for the lead. If I could go out far enough, I wonder if the telecam will do the job. As you come through the crane curves, if I pick on the right camera person, it's not going to work, is it? I need a wide enough shot. You can't see it, but yeah, they're very close. It's basically what I'm saying. You can almost see all of them in a wide enough camera angle, which is very interesting. In fact, there you go. That is your top four. That is exactly what we pay to see here. And hopefully is what you guys have come to enjoy and are enjoying so far this evening as well. Quarter of the way through this one. And Martin Thorpe leads the way. Marcus Hagel, Carolus, Jurgulis, Niall Dodson, Ash Coupland, your top 5. Thomas van der Stroy, Carlo Dorazio, Matt Damon, Ollie Giel and Mike Richards round out the top 10. And then your 11th position man is this man on camera at the moment, Gianluca De Luca in the Aston Martin, the 135 car. He's got Ivo van Collenberg for close company just in behind him. And then Mark Raddenbury and Rich Pixley almost forming what feels a bit like a tag team in this one, because they've, since Mark's been popped out back down towards him, they've kind of stayed together, realistically, since that's happened, and it has continued in the same vein. So these two very much working together, it seems, as we come into the fog. Yes, and that's Raddenbury making a move. Goodness me, he's gone straight through into the fog. Yes, we'll see. It looks like he just gets a really good run onto Starkey straight, gets to the inside, and I don't know whether Collenberg's expecting it, whether he tries to hold on to it. Look at this side by side. Oh, it's really, really good move there from Raddenbury. Really assertive, gets the move done, and puts himself up into P12. Further back, though, Pixley has lost a little bit of time, so we'll kind of see if we can see what's happened there. It is this contact that I can show you now. So let's have a look at the replay here. It's going into the Melbourne Loop. And it looks like, oh, just closes the door a little bit. That felt like he maybe needed to. Oh, as Besson goes into the side of him as well. That's really going to be some damage there for the Porsche, the Wild Things Porsche of Pixley. That's going to really struggle him for pace throughout the remaining 42 and a bit minutes of this one, you would think. So not ideal for him, and I can imagine, knowing what Rich is like, he won't be particularly happy in whatever Discord chat he's in at the moment, assuming he's in the one a little bit further above where I am in Discord at the moment. Further up the grid, Carlo Dorazio, P7 still, fending off the advances of Matt Damon. He's about the tune of about half a second back at the moment. And then you can see a bit further back, you've got Ollie Giel there in P9 and Mike Richards rounding out that top 10 as we mentioned before. Still plenty to play for out of this, and I will be very keen to go back to the leading battle in a few minutes time as well, because they are still super, super close. There's actually a second separating the top 3 at this moment in time, so you'll definitely go back to them. I don't want to give everyone motion sickness by jumping around too much at this moment in time. Moment, my prediction is not working because Martin Thorpe is still leading the way. Marcus Hagel, the man I had pinned for the win of this race, still sitting in second place, very much on the back of him though. This is the kind of time where realistically you can start to really kind of force the issue. You can put the car ahead of you under pressure. It is easier to follow. I think we'll all agree on that. And I might have just seen a little flash there from Hagel going down the Starkey straight as well, and that's Jurgulis just in the background. Now Dodds has fallen back a little bit, not by much, only by a second. Looks like he was about half a second slower than these guys on the last lap, so that's pushed him a little bit out of the fight for the win of this race. But with 41 and a bit minutes left to go, what I'm saying is there's plenty of opportunity for things to change throughout this one to come through Goddard's for another time. On to lap 13 now of this Donington Park GP circuit. Again, very, very close times between them. Jurgulis and Thorpe actually matching to 0.02 of a second. Their lap times are 28.207, plays a 28.205 for Thorpe and Jurgulis respectively, and then Hagel with a 28.3 just in the middle of those two. So falling back into the clutches, but falling a little bit away from Thorpe in the process. But look at how close they are. This is so good to watch. It's only going to start to get even hot up even more over the next couple of laps. In the meantime, we are just going to have a look a bit further down because we've got a battle for P17. And that is James Jackson getting the move done on Peter Phillips as they go into Goddard's. Good little move there from him. And gets the move done into the final corner. And there we go. I'm sorry, I can't keep jumping around. I've got to keep an eye on this because I feel like this is the kind of thing that is coming to boiling point at the moment. Thorpe still leads the way from Hagel, followed by Jurgulis, and Niall Dodds will be sitting there 2 seconds back. He's close enough to make any opportunity stick if these guys come to blows over the next couple of corners. Jurgulis looks to the inside, just reminding Hagel, look, I'm still there, big boy. I'm still behind you. I might be in the Porsche, but I'm not a slouch anymore in this new car, of course. Jürgelis electing to choose the new Porsche 911 that was released in the 1.9 ACC update yesterday for this one. So, of course, anything that happens here, we have to consider the fact that he will lose 50 championship points as a result of changing. These two will not. So nothing happening for those guys as it stands. I'm trying to remind myself where in the standings Mr. Thorpe is. I'm actually going to go and click on it and open them while I have a spare second. Martin Thorpe, actually, yeah, still he's fourth. Give me. This is the battle. Is this the battle for the top four? It is. Top four on the grid, top four in the standings. So it's basically it's what you want. What you want a grid to look like when you're going through here. It's starting to expand out a little bit. So Hagel just dropping back a couple of tenths. So Hagel dropping back a couple of tenths on this lap, and Jürgelis the same as well. Of course, we have always got back markers for these guys to contend with as well. And of course, that was what essentially decided the result in the round a couple of weeks ago at Suzuka. Rob Besant electing. I'm not going to say electing because that's not very fair. He was fortunate to make the move out of the way of the lap cars when he did, because it essentially benefited one over the other, which is a shame, but these things happen ultimately at the end of the day. Further down the grid, you can see James Jackson making moves. He's managed to dispatch Peter Phillips, who's actually dropped down to 22nd after that there. I don't really know exactly what has happened. Can't see. In fact, there is some contact recorded on the broadcast, and it says it's with James Jackson, so I wonder if there's been a coming together between those two. Lisa Louise is off on the inside. She's off on the infield. She dropped down to 18th position, unfortunately for her. A really, really good display from her. She will, at the moment, keep the AM class lead, but only by a second or so, but less than that. But to Rob Besant, here we go. James Jackson is going to look up the inside into the Melbourne loop on Mark Cooper. Mark doesn't really defend, but doesn't really need to in the end. James just sits in behind. Oh, Cooper very sideways coming out of there. If we look at the rear wing, you can actually see James Jackson. Is he going to look up the inside into Goddard's? He is indeed. Gets the inside move done, and you'd expect that's going to be moved done. It is indeed. Lovely exit from the 39 Audi there, and James gets himself back up into P15 now. So getting himself further up field. That recovery drive very much ongoing. As Dario Zappa, very, very last minute move there from the 990 machine. Gets the move done though, all importantly, and up into 16th place. Again, his recovery drive very much ongoing as Peter Phillips retires to pit lane. I can see I've lost another driver in the mixer. I think it's James Fletcher we've lost for that one, unfortunately for him. But of course we did see that he was in the wars early doors as well, so not unsurprising that we might have seen him disappear at some point. Further up the grid though, let's have a look at the battle for P7, because we've got Carlo Dorazio with Matt Damon, Ollie Gill and Mike Richards. All very close as always. We've just seen that Matt Damon contact with Dorazio. Gives him a nudge, gives him a second nudge. It's the iconic little double tap move. As you can see, there's a car going deep there. I think that was, in fact, I don't know who that was, who went wide there. It might have been someone who's actually nothing to do with this at the moment. Matt Damon does rather sensibly, it looked like there, just wait for Carlo Dorazio. So good to see a bit of sportsmanship there. Looked like it was a bit of an innocuous mistake to make, because he didn't necessarily need to go and make that move. But these things happen, and as a result, Dorazio pits. He's dropped down into P13. Matt Damon dropped down into P12. Van der Stroy sits in P6 still, with Ollie Gill and Mike Richards being the ultimate beneficiaries. They get themselves up into 7th and 8th. And Gianluca De Luca and Mark Raddenbury up into the top 10. Oh, Mike Richards going very wide there. Coming through the old hairpin. Manages to hold it. It's a good save from him in the end. So I can see there, Carlo Dorazio, P21 as it stands. Is he coming out of the pit lane just yet? He's not. So presumably fixing the damage. He's on the move. But that is his race for any decent points paying positions. Pretty much done and dusted and in the books for him on this one. Back up towards the 750 car. Mark Raddenbury in the positive perception machine. He is sitting on the last position in the top 10 at the moment, so he'll be getting a decent haul of points as it stands. That'll do him at the world of good. 6th in the championship at the moment in the pro class, of course. And that will be... Oh, as he goes a little bit wide there, loses the back end. Is he going to avoid the wall? He is. Oh, just about avoids the wall. and spares his blushes slightly, but puts himself down into P13 as a result of that mistake. Not ideal from the 750 car, and goes deep into the Melbourne Loop as a result. Not the most unlikely of scenarios to happen. And Gianluca De Luca up into P9 now. Rich Pixley up into the top 10, so fantastic showing from him. Despite that contact earlier on in the race, puts himself up into the top 10 despite starting 30th on the grid. Matt Damon in behind him as well. Of course, he's going to want to try and get some of those positions back, of course, having started, I believe, in 6th on the grid. Sorry, 5th on the grid, because he's dropped the 6 positions there. But as it stands still, just coming up towards the halfway point of this one, it is still Martin Thorpe who leads the way as they go into the Melbourne Loop for the 18th time. It's to the tune of 6/10 of a second at this moment, with Carolus Yorgulis a further 6/10 behind. So very even between these cars as it stands. Niall Dodds is still hanging in there. He's 2.3 seconds back, so he's lost a little bit of time once more. With Ash Coupland slowly but surely steadying that gap. It's 14.5 seconds back to the number 52 Pos per car in 5th place. Another further 11.3 seconds as it stands back to Thomas van der Struijs in P6. Ollie Giel, Mike Richards, Gianluca De Luca and Rich Pixley in the top 10. A Pos per machine with no Pos per logo. I know. I've told him this. I told him after last time that his livery wasn't loaded. He's put it in the wrong collection, but he hasn't fixed it. So he needs to fix it. I'm gonna give him a second slap on the wrist tonight because he's forgotten to do it again. It's very disappointing. He forces us to upload all of our liveries and then doesn't do it himself. Man needs telling off. I'll tell you that for nothing. We continue on then. As I said, coming towards the conclusion of the first half of this race, as the sun sets here at the Donington Park circuit. That's a Mercedes in the way there. It's Jamie Buchanan, I believe, and that's going to give Marcus Hagel the chance to make a move. Is it going into the Melbourne Loop? It's not. He looks to the outside. There's Bellozzo, there's Buchanan, and there is I can't see who that is. There is, I think that's Martin de Groot. If we pan over to him, yes, it is Martin de Groot going ahead of them. This is exactly what Hagel will be looking for, because this is the prime opportunity for him to potentially get a move done. Blue flags are waving for Bellozzo ahead. Is he going to make the move and get out of the way early doors? There's no flashing, interestingly, from Martin Thorpe, so potentially is that not necessarily worrying him as much as he thought as they go into Redgate for another time. And Martin Thorpe still, after 29 and a bit minutes, 28 and a bit minutes rather, still leading the way in this one as they come down through the crankers. That is a lovely camera angle as the cars are full throttle. Look at that. Steaming down through the twisting turns as they go through here, through the old hairpin, and it looks like they've managed to make the move done. But look to me like Yorgulis maybe held up a bit there as he dropped back as a result. He has a little bit, but nothing too major in the end. But that's brought Niall Dodds right up onto the back of things. You can see him just in the background. In fact, it did, and now he's got caught up with them again. So it's one of them. It's very much ebbing and flowing at the moment between these four. They're all getting benefits and detriments from the back markers in certain times. It's all kind of having an impact in a good or a bad way across the grid throughout this last couple of minutes. Through the Fogarty S's once more. That's it's Michael de Groot ahead of them with a slightly battered and bruised Ferrari. Oh, look at that. Martin Thorpe goes at the inside and has to pretty much stop on the apex of the Melbourne hairpin. That's going to again put him under fire from Marcus Hagel. That was a rather impatient move, you would argue, from the number 920 car, because he didn't really need to do it. He could have waited, and you saw there Michael de Groot very good to get out of the way as quickly as he could, knowing that you've got the top three in the race, or top four in the race really, so close behind you. It looks like a lap down. James Buchanan's made the most of this as well, because he's managed to get himself up a couple of positions as a result of this kind of uncertainty between the back markers as Mark Raddenbury gets the position on Ivo van Collenberg. It looks like almost a carbon copy of the move that he did earlier in the race. It looks like he's just gotten around the outside. He's actually gone the other side of van Collenberg this time, because it was on the inside that he did it before. But luckily for him, gets the move done before they even hit the braking zone for the Fogarty S's. His attention now turns back to that of Rich Pixley and Matt Damon, who are a few seconds up the road from them. But back up to the battle for P1. Again, at the moment, I feel like I'm going to be saying this all the time. at the moment, it is still Martin Thorpe who leads the way. I'm saying still as if he shouldn't really be there. He absolutely should. He's doing everything that he needs to be doing, ultimately, to continue leading this race. He's keeping it clean. The one mistake he's made was maybe that little dive up the inside on the last lap on the back of Michael de Groot, but he's managed to get away with it. He's keeping it clean and tidy, and now he's got a little bit of breathing room up to the car in P20, which is Lisa Louise, who's a little bit further up the road on track. See there, through Goddard's once more. Look at this. This is how close they are. You could almost throw a sheet of paper on all four of them. There is just over a second, or just under 2 seconds between the top four. These guys are so consistent and so close on pace as a result. This is really proving to be a real tense and intriguing battle throughout this race. And one of the benefits of having a standard lights to flag race is the fact that there's no strategy to throw into the mix. It's all on pace alone. So who can make the most of it and who can get the win in this one as we go into the final half of this race that will conclude the first half of this season. But in the meantime, we're going to drop back further down the grid to the back of them, to the top 10. Rich Pixley sitting in P10 at the moment, as you said, getting 20 positions off the start of the race as it stands. So really good job from him. Second time in a row he's had to start from the back of the grid and manages to get himself back up to the top 10 as a result. So really good showing from him. That is Michael de Groot, I believe, in the pit lane. It is indeed. So he was just in on your picture on the right hand side. And Matt Damon, it looks like he's just losing a little bit of time to Pixley behind at the moment. So something he's going to have to be mindful of, because he's got Raddenbury not too far behind him as well. So about 5 seconds. What I'm trying to say, I was going to say half of 10 seconds. That's just ridiculous. It's 6 seconds, 5-6 seconds back between Raddenbury and Damon. And a bit further back there, we've got Van Collenberg in 14th with James Jackson. Still continuing that remarkable recovery drive, because he was, 28th, I think, at one point. He is further up the grid. He's got 5 more positions to get before it happens. Oh, as Dario Zappa goes off, he's lost the lead. He's lost the back end of that Ferraris. He's gone through McLean's. I'm assuming he catches a little bit curved, does he, on the inside? Oh, no, he gets a little bit on the grass on the outside of there and loses the back end. Not what you wanted to see. He's actually gone back to the pit lane, so he has lost pretty much any points that he would have got in this one. That's unfortunate to see. So he drops well out of the top 20. Only 30 cars. Yeah, so you know how it is. 50 people sign up, 50 people don't turn up, unfortunately. People have stuff going on. We've had a few sign-ups for this one. And of course, we are operating that ruling of if people don't sign out for 2 races, then their position in the championship is removed, just to ensure that we've got more people. We can't manage a reserve list. So we're oversubscribed, which is a good and a bad thing, I suppose. And just one thing to point out, I'm looking at the statistics on here. The speed trap figures are in so far. Mark Raddenbury is the fastest man in the straight line, as he rightly pointed out. 239 kilometers an hour. The closest to that is Thomas van der Stroys with 238. There's probably a couple of others at 238 as well, but Mark very much well and away the fastest man in a straight line at this moment in time in this race. You see James Jackson trying to move to 13th now. Oh, it's a little bit wide there, coming up the hill for Ivo Van Collenberg. That's going to put him under pressure, you would think. It's going to give James Jackson all the impetus he needs to try and make a move. And in fact, we're just going to... In fact, no, keep an eye on it. Jurgulis has actually lost time to the leaders. I'm just seeing whether there's anything. I've not got anything on my stew sheet to tell me that they've had any contacts. I think he must have just lost that on his own. So he's now very much under pressure from Niall Dawes, as you can see. There's Lisa Louise in front of them as well. She's got a very wonky bonnet on the front of that BMW as they go around the outside of her, up through Schwantz Curve and up towards McLean's. Now it is a 2-horse race for the lead of this one between Martin Thorpe and Marcus Hagel, and this is very much the battle on for P3. Niall Dodds is going to want to try and make the move. Oh, look, Harris Gillis gets a little bit wide going into Coppice through the tight blind apex corner, and Niall Dodds got all the time in the world. Is this going to prove? Is the Porsche as slow in a straight line as it used to be in this new patch? It looks like they're pretty much side by side. They go side by side through the Fogarty S's. Love that commitment from both of them. Really good compliance from the two of them as well. Ultimately does lose them quite a bit of time, but fantastic work between the two of them to essentially go through there side by side. Brilliant work from those guys. As we can see, Gillis does just about manage to hold on to his third place in the race at the moment, but I would say that's coming under fire a little bit as Martin Thorpe extends the gap slightly. Stop-go penalty cleared for the 369 machine of... In fact, no, sorry, that is a stop-go penalty, I should say, for Michael de Groot, so he's going to have to come back in and serve that in the next 3 laps. Presumably that'll be for the speeding in the pit lane. And yes, Hagel lost 0.3 of a second too. I was about to allude to that. He's actually gained it back now, so it doesn't matter. We can assume it never happened. You can see, because it's back to 0.5 of a second. So it very much is 2 major battles. In fact, there's 3 battles on track at the moment. Because the other battle we can see here is the battle for P23 between Peter Phillips and Steve Derrick, the Pro GT sim racing car. I designed that myself, thank you very much. Is chasing down the Wild Things racing car. In fact, a little bit quicker was Derrick on the last lap, only by about 800ths of a second. So nothing too major, but enough to keep him very much within the chart, with a shout of this. Oh, he's going very sideways, coming out of McLean's and up towards Coppice. That is, I believe that is Van der Stroys just in behind him. He is your silver class leader at this moment in time in the race. Your AM class leader is Rob Besant, with Lisa Louise second in class there as well. And then Martin Thorpe, of course, leading the pro class at the moment, at least. Only still 5 tenths of a second, sorry, between first and second in the race at the moment. In fact, now it's 0.4 of a second, so it's getting closer. As you can see, lights are coming on. It's all starting to get a little bit darker. Dusk is setting in at the Donington Park GP circuit as these guys come through. They're on lap 26 now of this one with just over 20 minutes to go. That is Alessandro Di Candia in front of them. This is a position that they'll be lapping P17 now, which tells you the pace that these guys have got, which is incredible to see. Luckily, Andrea decides to get out of the way nice and easy. Keeps well out of the way. Good to see from him. Doesn't want to prove a catalyst or a protagonist in this fight. And you can see Gullis has just started to pull away a little bit from Niall Dodds, so making the most of that. As that is a big chunk of curb taken by Martin Thorpe. He's going to be very careful if he continues to do that. Unfortunately, we can't see how many track cuts they've done, so I can't tell you whether that was classed as one or not. I would think it was. That's my feeling, at least. What it ultimately shows you, though, is that there is pressure coming in from Hagel, because that is the kind of thing that happens when you're under pressure. 0.4 of a second at the moment. It's almost a dead heat in terms of their times on the last lap. So nothing changing and nothing to split these two cars right now. Looking back down towards the back end of the top 10, Gianluca De Luca still sitting in P9, but with Rich Pixley and Matt Damon close for company in behind them as well. Power just saying a great way to get out of the way. 100%. Absolutely was that, my good man, which is exactly what we want to see. We hold very high standards in terms of sportsmanship here at Positive Perception, in terms of our championships that we run, and so much so. Nice to see them being applied correctly, as we saw there as well. Good from him, just to essentially just get out of the way. Simplest way to put it. We continue on. Got 20 minutes left in this one, so coming towards the final knockings of this race. Martin Thorpe leading the way still by 3.5 tenths of a second to Marcus Hagel in the Pole Sim Sport BMW. Carolus Jurgulis is sitting in P3 in the number 24 Porsche. We've got Niall Dodds in the number 27 Mercedes sitting in behind him, and Ash Coupland a further 15 seconds back. And then Thomas van der Stroys leading the silver class, but a further 16.5 seconds back from Coupland in P6. It's an all-silver run through to Gianluca De Luca, your man on your screens at the moment, sitting in P9. And your AM class at the moment is still being led by Rob Besson in the number 190 Lamborghini. Got caught up in a couple of incidents, but kept it clean otherwise, and is heading towards a potential AM victory once more. Of course, took 2 AM victories in the first round, came second in the second round at Suzuka, and is very much en route for a potential third win of the season in the third round here at Donington Park. You can see Ollie Giel is the lead of this train to a certain extent, with Rich Pixley and Matt Damon just in behind him. Matt Damon, again, one of those people who is trying to make a couple of positions back up. He's dropped 6 since the start of this race. In fact, most of our top 10 have actually dropped out of said top 10. Looking at them, Martin, so Thorpe, Hagel, and Dodds were the only 3 that. No, completely get this wrong. Thorpe, Hagel, Yagulis, Dodds, Coupland, and Van der Stroys are the only ones. So the top 6 are the only ones still in the top 10. Everyone else in there, so the bottom 4 are all new to the top 10, and 3 of them have gained double-digit positions in this race, which is really quite impressive when you think about it. One of them is this man, Rich Pixley, but he's under increasing pressure from that Ferrari 296 of Matt Damon. You can look up the inside into McLean's. That's a little bit late, and he had to kind of avoid an action there. Very, very close between the 2 of them. Rich, I'm sure, would have been very much where that was going to happen. It looked like Matt got a really good run out of the old hairpin and up the hill towards McLean's, but never really a move you're going to get done at any point, to be completely honest. It's not a move I would go for. It's not a move many people would, unless you have really, really got the run on that particular person in front of you. So Pixley, lives to fight another day in 10th place. Of course, I'm sure, I mean, look, you're never going to want to lose a position, but I feel like if you're going to lose a position, if you've gained 20 already, less important. Oh, he's done it again. He's doing donuts for the camera as well. Roddenberry has lost it through the Fogarty S's. Just goes wide, keeps his foot in it. Racing 101. Don't keep your foot in it there, sunshine. You're on the grass. It's slippery. He just let off, brought it back on. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. It's always a difficult one to judge properly, but unfortunate for him to drop out of there. Hagel lost half a second. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Poya. Keeping an eye on it. It's back. It's back to half a second again, so it's really not changed on my end. But the timing tower hasn't quite updated properly just yet. But you're right, it did lose half a second on the last lap of 29.2. Plays a 28.6, but gained 4/10 of that back on the last tour of the circuit. This is Ollie Giel, the AI-generated Cosmic Kitten liveried car. It's a shame, really, not to see. It's a shame not to see Mark Roddenberry's face on these anymore, because I did enjoy seeing that on the face, on the bonnet of Ollie's Honda NSX, but that is no longer the case, of course. He's not in the same car. So one of those who will be taking a points drop into round 4 at Mazzano in a couple of weeks' time to start the second leg of this 6-round season. Pixley goes wide into the Melbourne Loop, and that's going to give Matt Damon all the impetus he needs. But importantly, Pixley gets a really good run off the exit of that hairpin and holds on to P10. It's really hard to get up to these guys. Look at this. A second pretty much between all 4 of these guys, and 3/10 separates the cars at the top of the race as well. Ben Holmes saying Ollie's car livery is glorious. It totally is. He's actually, well, I say he has. He sent Mark, who has then sent me the files and the programs to do the AI liveries. I haven't had a proper chance to do it yet, but I'm very keen to see how it comes out with, because from what I've seen there, just looks great. I think it's going to be one of those. It'll be a game changer for those people who come to us and say, I don't really know what I want. Because you can just go, right, build it. Car, see how we get on. So no, very, very cool indeed. He's certainly making the most out of it. I'm really keen to see what else he can do and bring out of there as well. So coming into the final quarter of this race now, I can't believe I've had 45 minutes this already. This is nuts that this race has absolutely flown by from my perspective. Hopefully it has done for you guys as well. There's been so much to keep a track of, but at the top of the grid, it's still the same 4. The top 4 are still the same. Hold on. The top 4 are not still the same. Dodds was third. Yagulis was 4th. That's the way around it was. They're the only 2 that changed. Top 2 the same. What you want, right, is cats in space. Exactly. I hope that's what he's typed in. Feels like that's the only way it should have been typed in. Speaking of which, little battle for the Cosmic Kit between him and Gianluca De Luca. There was a change for position for a second, which is what prompted me to to come and have a look at this, but I think it was a change as one of them's potentially gone deep into Goddard's, and Gilles does manage to hold on to that position. At the moment, was DeLuca going a little bit deep there into Redgate corner, and just about manages not to give a little bit of a nudge to the number 18, 296 ahead of him. Luckily avoided that. But yeah, the brief for this one, what you want, right, is cats in space. There has to be a discernible pause between cats in space. You got to build the tension. You've got to deliver the right message. It's got to be done. This is why I'm the one doing the commentary. I'm not saying that you can't do that, by the way. It's very difficult. Oh my word. What is going on there? That is Sandro Bosch pointing the wrong way in the Balf Motorsport McLaren. What's happened here? I'm actually going to go to this view because I want to see how close this is. Oh my word. Oh my God. He actually did get tagged in the end by DeLuca. Goodness me. It looks like he's turned his traction control off. I don't know if I'm the only one seeing this, but I'm seeing, like, on the map there, it looks like it says TC map 0. So I don't know whether that is the case. It's either Van Collenberg is going slowly. He's now potentially lost some time as well. We'll see what's happened here. Again, can't see that there's been any discernible contact between them. So we'll go back and see. Has he just lost it? He's already lost it. For how far we can go back on the replay. So he's already lost the time there and dropped back behind Roddenberry again. So back down into P14. Roddenberry certainly liked coming past him on that particular part of the circuit, whether he's on the track or not. And he is now just in front of our lead 2 cars. The gap between second and third has expanded. It's 5.9 seconds now. There is Sandro Bosch. He's got no traction control, and I can be convinced of that because he's spitting up mud and gravel everywhere at the moment. Hopefully he will decide to call it quits and disappear back to the pit lane in just a second, assuming he can make it back there, because it's not really what you want to be seeing. And that was quite a terrifying moment. We saw those guys all come out of the exit of McLean's and saw a McLaren pointing towards them, and at a point there it looked like he was trying to drive towards them as well, which is very scary indeed. But luckily for DeLuca, it looks like it's not discerned him too much, not impacted his race too negatively. He's still in P9 at the moment, and interestingly, no one's got a drive-through yet. That is something I was expecting up until this point, because we know how easy it is to get track cuts around this track. Unless they've changed the limits and I'm not aware of it. As old Pixley goes wide through the Melbourne Loop. He's done the same again as he did last time, which probably means he's going to have the exit on Matt Damon, so he's probably not going to lose position, and no, he doesn't. I think he's got his match there as Matt Damon. I don't think he can really get that move done. Seems like anything that he thinks might be potential for an opportunity, Pixley's like, no, way ahead of you. I've got this covered, don't you worry. So yeah, Gianluca DeLuca still in behind. He's dropped a little bit back to Ollie Gilles, lost a few tenths on that last lap. The gap between the top two, is still just under half a second. I mean, look how close they are. They've actually just gotten past Mark Roddenberry, so they're close to lapping up towards the top 10 in the end. I can see there Sandro Bosch in pit lane, which is good to see. And this is how close these two are. You can practically see the colour of the eyes of Marcus Hagel in the cockpit of that BMW M4 just behind. Not now, you can't, because they've driven further away from each other, which is typical. But as they go into the old airpin, look at that concertina effect, or the accordion effect as they go through there under braking as they close up again. This is one of those where this has been a really seriously impressive race from Martin Thorpe, because he has had all sorts of pressure behind him, and he's not yet had any moment where he's made any real mistakes as he's gone through it, which is amazing to see. It's incredible that he's managed to hold on for this long, and he's only got 10.5 minutes left to keep doing what he's doing. I suppose the main thing he needs to do now is just keep his nose clean, try not to get any track cuts, any potential warnings, and hopefully everything will come out. Are there any battles at the back of the grid? There's not. I'm looking at the timing chart. Everyone is at least 2 seconds apart from each other. I will keep an eye on it. If anything does change, we'll go back to it. But the main two battles we've got at the moment are between the top 2 and then the bottom end of the top 10. And actually, Matt Damon has just made a couple of moves. I'm interested to see Pixley has dropped out of the top 10. So I don't know, is this replay going to shed some light on there? He goes a little bit wide coming out of Redgate. Is it a little bit of contact there, or a little bit of a nudge between the two? That was the lap before, I think. Yeah, it is, because the move hasn't been made by Damon on DeLuca at that point, and that was made going down through the Crater curve. So these are the main two. In fact, saying that, we go back down towards Lisa Louise. She's got Peter Phillips within a second just behind, so we might see a potential change of position as Lisa Louise goes into the Melbourne Loop. Goes very slowly through there. Almost looked like she maybe jumped on the brakes a little bit too much, you might think. Oh, look, it's the little curb on the entry into Goddard's there on the outside. Upsets the car a little bit. Fortunately, nothing negatively doing so on that occasion. You see, we've lost another car. This one down to the 27 runners still going. I think that's Dario Zappa that we've lost in the end on that one, which is a shame to see. Here we see Phillips is closing the gap, closed it by 3 seconds or 2.5 seconds on the last lap. So Lisa Louise not actually invalidating the last lap, maybe just struggling a little bit. It goes wide for the old hairpin, and that's going to be the position you would think for Peter Phillips. It is indeed. Lisa doing a fantastic job of actually stopping the car from really going anywhere off the track, which is impressive to see, as I believe that Sandro Bosch retiring from the race as well. So down to the 26 cars still left in this one, 3 of which are separated by just over a second. Matt Damon is 0.2 behind that of Ollie Gio ahead. The gap at the lead is 1 second now between Hagel and Martin Thorpe. That gap's starting to fall out a little bit. Niall Dodds is 6 seconds back off of Jurgulis now. So the third place position, you would argue, pretty much in the books with 7 and a bit minutes left. There's lots of other positions across the grid, though, that's still yet to be decided. Very much so, this being one of them. The 296 Ferrari duo of Matt Damon and Ollie Gio in 8th and 7th respectively. Sorry, 8th and 9th respectively. Will Damon try and make the move? Of course, we've said earlier, he's one of those who's trying to get his way back up into the upper reaches of the top 10. He's 4 positions off where he started in the end, which is not too bad considering the grand scheme of things. Mike Richards and Ollie Gio, those major winners, making 13 and 11 places up on their original starting positions on the grid. And Ollie Gio is doing a fantastic job here of ultimately just staying calm. He's not getting flustered by it. He's not letting anything get in his head. He's seen a couple of moves, looked at the inside of Matt Damon. He's probably seen some of the moves that Matt has made on the guys behind him, but he's just got to keep his head in the game, focus on what's going on around him, and hit every apex where he can. That is going to be the main thing. Come up towards Schwantz curve. At the moment, it looks as though the gap at the top is starting to increase. So is Martin Thorpe strengthening that stranglehold? It's 1.3 seconds, the gap now, back to Marcus Hagel. It looks like they've both made a mistake on this one. In fact, you can see they're starting to close up again. Sorry, I've just seen this gap starting to decrease. So in fact, very rapidly decreasing. I'm guessing Thorpe there went a little bit deep coming out of the McLean's. Look, there's the move for the inside. Can he get the move done? No, Hagel just can't quite get that move and make it stick. He was up the inside through McLean's, but not able to get the move done. And he'll have to continue to settle and whittle away at this one, at the 920 Total Connectors Motorsports car, with 5 or just under 6 minutes left in this race. Martin Thorpe goes wide and loses the car on the exit of the Foggy S's, and that is the move done. That is the position in the books. Martin Thorpe loses the rear coming through the Foggy S's, goes down to 3rd place in the end. Can see just gets a big chunk of curb on the sausage curb on the inside. Loses the rear end, and that is the most unfortunate way to lose a potential victory you will ever see. And there you see in the background Jurgulis getting the move and up into P2 as a result. So this is now your race leader coming into the final 5 minutes of this one. Marcus Hagel has really not had a chance to make any sort of impulse on the lead of this race up until a mistake made by Martin Thorpe. That is heartbreaking for the BMW driver, and Jurgulis is the one who benefits from that as well. He gets himself up into P2, and then Martin Thorpe, the aforementioned, drops back into P3. Still potential of a podium there, but not the podium position he will want, of course, after seemingly, I wouldn't say he had it sewn up, but he was certainly heading the right way for it. He'd made no mistakes really whatsoever until that point, and it shows you just how high the stakes are in this GT Championship this season here at Positive Perception, because that was one mistake 55 minutes into a 1 hour race, and that's lost him the potential win of this one. And Marcus Hagel looks like he's going to come through to take another win here to book in with the first wins he's got in the first couple of rounds at Monza a couple of weeks prior to this one. Further down the grid, Matt Damon has now managed to get past Ollie Geel. He's now up into 8th position, with Ollie Geel dropping back into 9th, with Gianluca De Luca still very much on the coattails, of the man in 9th place. Aston Martin following the Ferrari. Not necessarily what you would see on the Formula 1 circuit at the moment. Sorry those to you in the chat who are Ferrari fans. Not quite going your way just this moment in time. A bit further back, we've got Mark Raddenbury going a little bit wide. He's going to let Niall Dodds through, and that's going to give Ivo van Collenberg a bit of impetus, potentially, you would think, to maybe try and make the move. That's him right behind Raddenbury in that carbon Ferrari, but he's not going to get the move done. That was a little bit naive from Mark there. Sensible for him to just get out of the way and let Niall Dodds come through. Not so sensible, because it's put him right under pressure from the number 668 machine. And that's Mark Cooper just in behind there as well. So these three separated by just over half a second at this moment in time. As Mark Raddenbury goes deep through the old hairpin once more. That's going to give Gern Collenberg a bit of a chance again, is it? It's not. No, he's not going to get the chance to get the toe. Of course, we've just seen, in fact, we've already seen in the speed traps how bloody quick this BMW M6 is in a straight line. It's one of the reasons why Mark picked it, I believe. Despite the fact we head to Zandvoort in a couple of weeks, as Van Collenberg goes deep there, and that's going to put him under pressure and give Mark Cooper a bit of an opportunity, you'd think, to maybe try and get the move done. That's Nick Kalianis in the background of that shot in P24, but he's of course a lap down, so won't be putting any he won't be doing anything to impact this one. And then further back once more, we've got Rob Besant in the Rosers Racing Lamborghini. He's under a bit of pressure from Andrea Di Candia, who is in P17 and looking to potentially make a move. Won't make a difference from a class perspective. They'll both stay in the same positions, but it will be something for that kind of, wouldn't say pride as such, but more as a little bit of a G-up going into the second half of this season, you would think. With 2 minutes left to go, though, Marcus Hagel leads the way in this one. So we've got, looking at where Marcus is on the grid, on the track, we've got 2 laps, including the one we're on, before this round 3 is in the books. And you can see 26 cars still in the running, but with Nadir Balozzo sitting in the pit lane. I don't think we'll see him come out any more in this one. As interestingly, I've just noticed that we've lost DeCandia in the end. I'm not sure what happened to him. He seems to have dropped miles out of the running in the end. Not entirely sure what has happened there. And that up there is a BMW that I have never seen before in front of him on track, the 101 car. Tells me a lot. That's Andrea De Perna. My apologies, Andrea. I've not actually looked at you this evening because I haven't recognised your livery. I've seen this livery before, I just haven't seen it there. Mike Richards is off. He's off again, so he's cutting grass once more. He's going to potentially lose a position. No, he's not. He's got a nice, hefty gap back to Matt Damon behind him, so no positions lost for him. As we see Mark Raddenbury again under pressure going into the Melbourne loop. Van Collenberg's going to look up the inside as he into the Melbourne hairpin. It's a bit tight from Mark Raddenbury there. Just cuts the inside as he manages to hold on to it, and that's going to give Mark Cooper the chance again to potentially try and make the move. We'll see if that happens. Oh, as Mark goes deep into Goddard, is that going to be the move done? It looks like it is. Van Collenberg gets the move done through Goddard. In fact, they're side by side coming down the main straight towards Redgate. Mark's going to have the inside line going into Redgate corner, so hopefully he'll be thinking he can keep this on the inside. Will Van Collenberg try and go around the outside? That is a fantastic move. He can get it done. We go back towards the helicopter to see what's happening here as we go through there. Yeah, Van Collenberg in the books. That is P13 for him. Raddenbury drops the position down to P14 and has got Mark Cooper all over his rear diffuser as he comes through down the crane of curves towards the old hairpin. But he's not going to hold on. He's still going to hold on, to that position there. Fantastic move from Van Collenberg to get the move around the outside of Redgate corner. Really good stuff from him as Raddenbury loses the back end a little bit there. He's under all sorts of pressure. Maybe the tyres have gone off the cliff as it stands, but we're going to drop to the man who is leading this race as we hit the final knockings And the final couple of corners on this race here at Donington Park, the GP circuit here for the Positive Perception GT Championship. Marcus Hagel of Pole Sim Sport, the 117 machine, comes through Goddards for one final time, and he will come out of here and he will take the win. It's his third win of the season, cuts the inside, a little bit of weaving and flashing over the line, and Marcus Hagel takes the victory here at Donington Park. Karolis Yorgulis takes a second place in the end, and Martin Thorpe, unfortunately, coming through to finish P3. Still a great result, but not what he would have wanted. Niall Dodds comes through where he started to come through in P4, and then Ash Coupland a little bit further back in P5, and you'll see a lot of those just a bit further down. Rich Pixley, I believe, is the last of the running cars to have stayed on the lead lap, I think, looking at that, because James Jackson has officially finished the race. Ash Coupland will come through to finish in P5. Good result from him after a very interesting start and being pushed off when he went wide through Redgate on the first corner. Thomas van der Stroys will be your silver class winner in this one. Takes a commanding victory in class, 12.5 seconds ahead of Mike Richards, who's going to come through in P7 on the road and P2 in class there, with Matt Damon in P8. Ollie Geel, you would argue, is going to come through in P10, and then Gianluca De Luca and Rich Pixley, the last of the running cars on the lead lap, he will come through in P11. If we look back through the rest of the grid, James Jackson in P12, Ivo van Collenberg in P13, with Mark Cooper P14, Mark Radbury P15 in the end, so lost the position to Cooper on the final lap. Rob Besson in 16th overall and takes the AM class victory for tonight's proceeding. Carlo Durazio and Andrea De Perna 17th and 18th. DeCandia Phillips round out your top 20. And then as we continue down through the grid, through the entry, through the final couple of people on the grid there, we've got Jamie Buchanan 21st, Steve Derrick 22nd, Lisa Louise 23rd, Nick Karianis 24th, and Michael de Groot, finishing in 25th and last place. Of course, a few drivers who didn't make it to the end, unfortunately, but that was a lot to unpack. I mean, I have got all sorts to figure out. I need to probably have a lie down after that one. It was Martin Thorpe who pretty much had the race wrapped up, you would argue, until the last possible minute. Real big shame for him. Well, still good for him to get a P3 in the end. So good from him to get a podium in the grand scheme of things, but real big shame that he didn't manage to hold on to that victory. But Marcus Hagel takes the win as we round out the first half of this GT season here at the Positive Perception HQ. For the next couple of rounds, as I said before, it's Mazzano in a couple of weeks for round 4. It's Zandvoort for round 5 for the penultimate round of the season. And it's Watkins Glen for the finale in 6 weeks' time for this one. Whew. It's been tiring doing that all on my own. I can see everyone is piling in to the Discord chat to chat about how their race went. Hopefully everyone will be all nice and courteous and all that sort of good stuff in the background as well. But in the meantime, if you have watched this one and you've enjoyed it, thank you for dropping by and enjoying things. And we'll just take one moment to come back to what Poe said. That's what happens when you don't have POSPER logos on the car. You're absolutely right. When you don't have POSPER logos on the car, you don't finish well. That's it. Nice and simple, nice and clear for everyone. But if you've watched it through the chat, if you're watching this back in the end, thank you for coming back, and thank you for watching this live if you have done already. Appreciate the numbers of you dropping out and watching in the chat, which is fantastic to see. If you have enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe for the next round in a couple of weeks' time. But we are back on Sunday for some iRacing action with the final round of the Tanso Racing GR86 League at Donington Park again. So it's 2 rounds of Donington Park in the space of 4 days for you guys to watch on that one. In the meantime, though, thank you guys for attending. My name has been David Westlife, your commentary and your stream for this evening. Hopefully you've enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching as ever, and we'll see you guys again very soon for the next one. Have a lovely rest of your evening, and we'll see you again very soon. Goodbye.